I think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a joke. One that everyone laughed at except him. Now there's a thick envelope from his lawyer on my kitchen counter, and I can't believe he's really doing this over that. I'm not a bad person. At least, I don't think I am. I just made a joke. One stupid little joke that everyone laughed at except my husband. It wasn't even meant to be cruel. It was just supposed to lighten the mood, keep the conversation going, make me look funny and confident. That's what people like about me. Or used to. Now there's this thick envelope sitting on my kitchen counter with his lawyer's name on it, and suddenly no one's laughing anymore. When I think back to that night, I still hear the laughter echoing in my head, the clinking glasses, the way everyone leaned in waiting for the next punchline. I was glowing under the soft light, saying all the right things, getting all the right reactions, until I said that, until Daniel's face went still and quiet in a room full of noise. He didn't yell or make a scene, he just left. And somehow, that silence was worse than if he'd screamed. Now he won't answer my calls. His side of the closet is empty, and everyone keeps asking me the same question. Why did I say it? Honestly, I still don't know. The night of the dinner party, everything felt perfect at first. The house smelled like rosemary and lemon from the chicken Daniel had spent all afternoon cooking, and the candles I picked out flickered just right against the new glassware. I'd been planning this evening for weeks, our turn to host finally. The table was set, the playlist soft and warm, the wine chilled. I wanted it to look effortless, like we were that couple who had everything together. Daniel was in the kitchen checking on the food when I caught my reflection in the window, my hair done, my lipstick on point, the dress that hugged me just enough to look elegant but not desperate. I smiled at myself, imagining the photos people would post later, the compliments that would trickle in about our home, my style, the goals kind of marriage we seemed to have. When the doorbell rang, I called for Daniel to get it, pretending I was busy arranging flowers, though really, I wanted to make my entrance after everyone had arrived. I liked the effect, the little pause before people noticed me, the way their eyes shifted and they smiled, like I was the final touch of the evening. Our friends came in laughing, Cassidy and her husband first, then Mark and Pamela, followed by Krista and Dave. The usual crowd. We'd all known each other since college, back when everything was easier, and nights like this were just pizza boxes and cheap beer. Now we had mortgages, jobs, kids, and matching dishware. But the banter hadn't changed much. Daniel poured wine while I gave a small tour of the kitchen remodel. Everyone admired the backsplash and the new island I'd insisted we splurge on. Daniel joked about the price tag, and I smiled sweetly, adding that he'll thank me when we sell for double someday. They laughed, and I soaked it up. Dinner started off beautifully. The food was perfect, the conversation easy. We talked about work, vacations, little annoyances. Daniel told a story about a client at his firm, and everyone listened politely, but I could feel the energy dip. He was good, reliable, but not exactly entertaining. I stepped in, adding little comments, exaggerating details, getting laughs. I could feel the room shift back toward me. By dessert, everyone was a bit tipsy, and the jokes were getting bolder. Mark teased Pamela about her obsession with true crime, and she threw a napkin at him. Cassidy made a crack about how she's the only one in the group who still goes to the gym. It was easy, familiar chaos. Then someone, I think it was Dave, brought up the topic of marriage secrets. "What's something your partner doesn't know about you?" he asked, grinning like a talk show host. I smirked. "Where do I start?" I said, earning a few laughs. Daniel gave me a look, that quiet, careful one he uses when he's not sure whether I'm joking or about to cross a line. Cassidy jumped in. "Oh, come on, Thalassa always has the best ones. Spill." I should have stopped there. I could have said something harmless, like how I sometimes throw out his old t-shirts without telling him, or that I pretend not to know where he hides the chocolate. But I felt the buzz of the wine, the warmth of attention, and I couldn't resist. So I said, "Fine. Want to hear something funny? Daniel might kill me for this, but..." He gave a small shake of his head, just a hint. A warning, maybe. But everyone was watching, waiting. I loved that feeling, being the center of gravity in the room. I leaned forward and smiled. Let's just say my husband isn't exactly the biggest in the room. Laughter, quick, sharp, startled, a few gasps. Cassidy's eyes widened, then she covered her mouth and laughed harder, probably because she didn't know what else to do. Pamela looked embarrassed. Dave coughed into his drink. Daniel didn't move. His fork was still in his hand, resting above the plate. I felt the flush of power, that mix of nerves and pride. It worked. They were laughing. I'd said the shocking thing, the joke that would make the night memorable. So I kept going. I mean, it's fine. It's not about size, right? Personality matters more. A ripple of uneasy laughter. Cassidy muttered my name, like a warning this time. Daniel set his fork down, gently, too gently. "Come on," I said, still grinning but faltering a little. "We joke like this all the time." No one said anything. The laughter had gone thin. Daniel stood up. For a second I thought he was just clearing plates, trying to smooth things over. But he didn't pick anything up. He just walked toward the doorway, silent, not even glancing at me. The front door opened and closed quietly. No slam, no raised voice. Just gone. The silence he left behind was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. Cassidy reached out like she might touch my arm, but didn't. "Maybe you should check on him," she said softly. I laughed. Too loud, too fast. "He's fine. He's just being dramatic. He'll come back when he cools off." Mark cleared his throat. "Yeah, maybe. Maybe give him a minute." The room felt wrong now, too bright and too still. The smell of food turned sour. Pamela started stacking plates to help, and I waved her off, pretending not to care. When they finally left, each goodbye was awkward, quiet, forced. Cassidy hugged me quickly and whispered, "You went too far." I told her to stop being so sensitive, that it was a harmless joke, that Daniel would laugh about it tomorrow. Except he didn't. When I went upstairs later, the closet door was open. A few of his shirts were missing. His watch wasn't on the dresser. I told myself he was just trying to scare me, make a point. I poured another glass of wine, sent him a text. "You seriously left over that?" And watched it sit undelivered without a reply. By morning, his side of the bed was still cold. I stared at the dent in the pillow where his head should have been, and felt something tight in my chest, though I told myself it was anger, not regret. I made coffee, posted a photo from the night before, a smiling table, a caption that read, "Perfect evening with friends," and ignored the hollow feeling in my stomach. When Cassidy called around noon, I answered with forced cheer. She asked if Daniel was home yet. I said no, but he would be soon. "He looked really hurt," she said quietly. "He's just sensitive," I replied. "He knows I didn't mean it." But when I hung up, I checked my messages again. Nothing. No call, no text. Just silence. By evening, I tried to convince myself I was the one owed an apology. He'd embarrassed me, walking out in front of everyone. Who does that? If anyone was wrong here, it was him. Still, when the clock hit midnight, I couldn't stop glancing at the driveway. I imagined his headlights appearing, him walking in sheepishly, me pretending to be half asleep so I could forgive him with grace. But the driveway stayed dark. When I finally went to bed, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet. Every sound, the fridge humming, the wind outside, felt like judgment. Around 2 a.m., I opened my phone again and reread my own text. "You seriously left over that." I almost typed another, "I'm sorry," but deleted it before sending. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of thinking he'd won. The next morning, when I went downstairs, the mail was sitting by the door. Bills, a flyer, and one plain white envelope addressed to Mrs. Thalassa Grant. Inside was a note, written in Daniel's neat handwriting. We'll talk when I've decided what's left to say. No love, no name, just that. For the first time, I realized he might actually mean it. The next morning felt strange, like the air inside the house had changed overnight. It wasn't just empty, it was hollow, like every sound echoed. The sunlight came through the blinds too sharply, hitting the counter where the wine glasses from last night still sat. One had his fingerprint on it, smudged against the glass. I kept staring at it, thinking maybe I should wash it. Maybe that would make me stop thinking about the way he'd left. Instead, I made coffee and checked my phone. Nothing from him. Not a text, not a missed call. Just a few messages from friends. Are you okay? Did you talk to him? That was kind of intense last night. Intense. That's the word they used. Like it was a scene in a movie and not my life cracking open. I typed back something breezy. We're fine. He just overreacted. You know how Daniel gets. Then added a laughing emoji to make it sound casual. I figured that would settle it. The last thing I wanted was people gossiping like we were in trouble. Cassidy called around noon. I thought about ignoring it, but I didn't want her thinking I was hiding. She didn't waste time with small talk. He still hasn't come back? No, I said, pouring more coffee I didn't even want. He's just being dramatic. He'll get over it. You really don't think maybe it was a little too much? She asked carefully. It was a joke, I said, sharper than I meant to. Everyone jokes about their partners. He's just sensitive. There was a pause. Then she said, You humiliated him in front of everyone, Thalassa. That made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. Humiliated. Oh, please, he's not a child. It was playful. If he can't laugh at himself, that's his problem. Yeah, she said quietly, but it didn't feel playful. I told her she was overthinking it and hung up soon after, pretending I had work to do. But the call stuck with me. I tried to distract myself by cleaning, scrolling, watching a show, anything to keep from checking the driveway again. By afternoon, I started to get irritated. How long was he planning to punish me for one comment? It wasn't like I'd screamed at him or cheated or something serious. People say worse things in relationships all the time. I sent him a text. You done sulking yet? No reply. An hour later, we should talk like adults, not children. Call me when you're ready. Still nothing. By evening, irritation had turned to panic. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt like I'd lost control of the story. And that terrified me more than anything. I opened our group chat, the same one with all the friends who'd been there, and typed, so I guess Daniel's really mad. Who knew he'd be so touchy about a joke? I added a crying, laughing emoji. Cassidy didn't respond. Krista sent a single yikes. Mark replied with, maybe give him space. Then Dave messaged, he's at his brother's place. Said he needs time to think. That hit me harder than I expected. Think about what? I wanted to type, but I didn't. Instead, I left the chat and threw my phone onto the couch. I told myself I was angry, not scared. Angry that he'd run to his brother like some kind of victim. Angry that my friends probably thought I was cruel. Angry that he was controlling the narrative when I should have been the one doing that. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and went live on my social media. Just a short video of me laughing with a caption. Some people really can't take a joke. Within an hour, it got dozens of likes. That felt good. It reminded me that I was charming, funny, the kind of woman people liked being around. When I woke up the next morning, though, the likes didn't feel like comfort. There was a message from an unknown number. I opened it and froze. It was from Daniel's sister, Lauren. You humiliated him in front of everyone, Thalassa. He's not coming back this time. I stared at the message for a long time, my hands shaking even though I told myself I wasn't scared. I typed back, It was a joke, Lauren. He's overreacting. She replied instantly, No, it wasn't a joke to him. You made him into a punchline. I wanted to throw the phone, but instead I texted back something cold. Maybe he should learn to handle a little teasing. Marriage isn't therapy. No answer. By mid-morning, my mum called. "What did you do to Daniel?" she asked before I could even say hello. "Good morning to you too," I said. "Your father saw something online about a fight. Something about you embarrassing him." I groaned. "Oh my God, it's not even a fight. Everyone's being so dramatic. He just took a joke the wrong way." She sighed loudly. "Sweetheart, you can't say things like that about your husband in front of people. Men have egos." "Oh, so now it's my fault for having a personality." "I'm saying maybe apologize before it gets worse." "I'm not apologizing for being funny." She went quiet for a moment, then said, "You always do this, Thalassa. You push until someone breaks, and then you act shocked when they finally stop playing along." I hung up before she could finish. She always took other people's sides. By the third day, I started checking our joint accounts. He hadn't touched anything, but I noticed his name had been removed from our shared calendar, and his contact photo was gone from our family phone plan. Little signs that he was quietly deleting himself. That night, I couldn't help it. I texted again. "Can we talk? Please?" 10 minutes later, a message popped up. For a second, my heart leapt. Then I read it. "Not yet. I'm not ready to talk to someone who laughs at me." I typed back quickly. "You're twisting it." Everyone knew it was a joke. "You're being cold." No reply. The next morning, a delivery truck stopped outside. The driver handed me a brown envelope, the kind you get from an office. Inside was a receipt. Daniel had scheduled a consultation with a law firm. I laughed out loud, but it came out sharp and nervous. "A lawyer? Really?" I said to no one. I sent him another text. "So now you're hiring lawyers because I made a joke?" No answer. By evening, my dad stopped by, probably sent by my mother. He stood in the doorway holding a grocery bag like he needed a reason to be there. "Brought you some food," he said awkwardly. I thanked him, though I didn't need food. I needed control. He looked around, taking in the empty spaces where Daniel's things used to be. "He's serious this time," he said quietly. "He's being ridiculous," I snapped. "What kind of man walks out over a few words?" "The kind who's tired," my father said. I didn't like that answer. It sounded too final. After he left, I sat at the dining table where it had all started. The candle wax was still stuck to the runner, the wine stains dark against the fabric. I told myself that once Daniel calmed down, I'd spin it right again. Maybe cry a little, say I was drunk, blame the wine, the pressure, anything. He'd always been soft-hearted. He'd forgive me eventually. Still, the thought of him sitting in some lawyer's office made my stomach twist. I pictured him explaining things in that quiet, factual way he had. No drama, just calm words that somehow hurt more than shouting ever could. I poured another glass of wine, opened my phone, and stared at his last message. Not yet. I'm not ready to talk to someone who laughs at me. It played on repeat in my head until I almost believed I hadn't meant to laugh. Around midnight, I drafted another text. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We can fix it if you just come home." I didn't send it. Instead, I looked around at the perfect house, the spotless kitchen, the empty hallway, and whispered to the air, "He'll come back. He always does." But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. The third week without Daniel felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Everything in the house looked normal, but nothing felt real. His mug was still in the cabinet, his slippers by the door, but he wasn't there. The silence stretched through the rooms like fog, thick and heavy. I kept expecting to hear his key turn in the lock or his voice calling my name, but there was nothing. At first, I tried to keep up appearances. I posted pictures of Sophie and me at the park, pretending everything was fine. Smiling faces, filtered light, captions about making memories. People commented with hearts and kind words, but I knew what they were really doing. Watching. Waiting to see if we'd officially split. At work, I acted normal. Maybe a bit louder than usual. I wanted everyone to see I was fine, thriving even. Jonah from my office started paying me more attention around then. He'd always been a little flirty, but lately, he lingered by my desk more often, complimenting my outfits, making jokes just sharp enough to feel special. "You're too good for some boring finance guy," he said once, and I laughed, though my chest felt tight. I told him Daniel and I were taking space, that things had just gotten complicated. He said he understood. He said sometimes men didn't know how to handle strong women. I liked that. It made me feel seen, like I wasn't the villain in my own story. A few days later, he asked if I wanted to grab drinks after work. I hesitated for half a second, then said yes. I told myself it was harmless, that it wasn't a date, that I just needed to unwind. The bar we went to was one of those dimly lit places where everyone talks too close. Jonah ordered drinks and told me I looked different without my usual work armor. I laughed and told him he was dramatic. He said he liked dramatic. Somewhere between the second and third drink, I started telling him about the dinner party. Not everything, just enough to make it sound like Daniel had overreacted. I said I'd made a silly joke, that he'd embarrassed me by storming off, that he'd been controlling for months. I twisted the story until I almost believed it myself. Jonah listened like he believed every word, shaking his head, saying, "You don't deserve that." It felt good to be the one comforted for once, to be told I was right, to be the one getting sympathy. When I got home, the house felt even emptier than before. I sat on the couch and stared at the framed wedding photo on the shelf. We were smiling in it, both of us sunburned from our honeymoon, looking stupidly in love. I turned the frame face down. The next morning, I had a message from Daniel's lawyer. Short, formal, polite. Notice of temporary separation agreement enclosed. Attached was a PDF. I opened it, and my breath caught. He'd listed conditions: financial separation, temporary custody of Sophie, division of assets. It was all written in legal language, cold and careful. There was a deadline for response. I called him immediately, but it went to voicemail. My voice shook even though I tried to sound calm. "This is ridiculous, Daniel. We can talk about this like adults. You don't need to get lawyers involved. Call me back." He didn't. Later that afternoon, I drove to his brother's house. I told myself it was just to talk, to get some closure. His brother, Ryan, opened the door and looked at me like I was a stranger. "He's not here," he said flatly. "Can you tell him I came by?" I asked. "I think he knows," Ryan said. Then, after a pause, "You really hurt him, Thalassa." "I made a joke," I snapped. "Everyone's acting like I committed a crime." Ryan looked away. It wasn't a joke to him. I stood there a moment longer, but he didn't invite me in. When I got back in the car, I realized I was shaking. That night, I texted Jonah. "Drinks again?" We met at the same bar, same corner booth. I needed distraction, and he was willing to give it. He told me I was beautiful, that Daniel must be insane to leave me. I told him not to talk about my husband like that, even though it secretly thrilled me to hear it. When he leaned in, I didn't pull away right away. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would feel like to move on, to have someone new look at me with hunger instead of judgment. But then I stopped him. I said I couldn't. Not yet. He smiled like he understood, said he'd wait. Driving home, I told myself it wasn't cheating. It was harmless, emotional release, a way to remind myself that I was still wanted. But when I walked into the quiet house, the guilt hit me like cold air. I sat on the couch and scrolled through old photos of Daniel and me. Birthdays, trips, Sophie's first day of school. He always looked at me like I was the only person in the room. I'd forgotten that look. Or maybe I'd taken it for granted. I thought about texting him again, maybe apologizing, but I couldn't bring myself to type the words. I didn't want to admit I was wrong. Not yet. Instead, I called my mum. She answered on the second ring. "He filed something," I said. "What kind of something?" "Separation papers. Temporary, I think." She sighed. Maybe this will make him see how serious you are about working things out. I'm not sure that's what it means, I said quietly. She paused. Then you need to fix it before it becomes divorce. Her voice made it sound so simple, like it was a small fire I could just stamp out. But I knew it wasn't. The next day, I went into the office early and buried myself in work. Jonah tried to talk to me, but I brushed him off. I didn't want to feel that confusion again. I didn't want to feel anything. At lunch, I opened my email and saw a message from Daniel. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't personal, it was logistical. Please review the separation terms. I'll handle the mortgage payments until the property division is finalized. I'll pick up Sophie Friday afternoon. Let her know I'll see her soon. That was it. No emotion, no warmth, just business. I read it 3 times, waiting to feel anger, but what I felt instead was panic. The kind that crawls under your skin and sits there, heavy. That night, when Sophie asked if Daddy was coming home soon, I smiled and told her he just needed to finish some work. She nodded like she believed me. Kids always believe the easy version of things. After she went to bed, I poured myself another glass of wine. I told myself I still had control, that I could fix this if I really wanted to. I'd just have to be smarter about it. Maybe make him pity me. Make him remember what he was walking away from. I picked up my phone and opened our messages. The last one was still there. My voicemail he hadn't answered. I started typing. I'm sorry if the joke hurt you. I didn't mean it that way. Can we please talk? I deleted it, then retyped it, then deleted it again. Finally, I sent a different one. We need to discuss custody before you confuse Sophie. Call me tomorrow. It sounded cold and in control, just how I wanted it to. I stared at the screen, waiting for those 3 dots to appear, but they never did. Instead, I got a notification from my email, the law firm again. Acknowledgement of receipt, notice of temporary separation agreement, signed by Mr. Grant. It was official now. He'd filed. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. It was the only sound in the house. For the first time, it hit me that Daniel wasn't just angry. He was gone. And if I didn't find a way to pull him back, I might be the only one still pretending there was anything left to save. I spent the next few days telling myself that if I could just see Daniel face to face, I could fix it. Texts and emails were too cold, too easy to ignore. If he could see me cry, hear my voice, he'd remember what we had. He'd soften. He always did before. But he wasn't answering, and I wasn't about to sit around waiting for some lawyer to decide my life. So I found out which firm he was using, Thompson and Boyd, and drove there one grey Thursday morning. The receptionist smiled politely when I gave my name, then disappeared into the back. A few minutes later, a man in a dark suit came out, mid-40s, careful eyes. He introduced himself as Mr. Holt, Daniel's attorney. I told him I wasn't there to cause trouble. I just wanted to talk. Daniel and I don't need lawyers to ruin our marriage, I said. We just need a conversation. He listened quietly, hands folded. When I finished, he said, Mrs. Grant, I can't discuss your husband's case with you without your representation present. It's best if you retain your own counsel. That calm, polite tone made me furious. So that's it, I said. You're helping him throw away 10 years over a joke. He didn't respond, just gave me a small nod that said the meeting was over. I left shaking. Outside, the wind caught my hair, and I almost laughed at how ridiculous it all was. My husband was hiding behind lawyers, and I was being treated like some stranger at his door. When I got home, I called my mum. You won't believe this, I started, and she didn't even let me finish. Good, she said, get your own lawyer. He's playing hardball. I don't want a lawyer, I said. I want my husband. You want control, she said softly. Same thing, really. I hated that she said it because it was too close to the truth. By that weekend, Daniel's parents had reached out. Margaret called first, her voice calm and cutting. Thalassa, she said, I'm not calling to argue. I just want you to understand something. Margaret, I know what you're going to say. No, you don't, she interrupted. You thought it was funny to make him small in front of people. He's been small his whole life, quiet, overlooked. You were supposed to make him feel safe. Instead, you confirmed his worst fear. I swallowed hard. It was just a joke, she finished for me. Yes, I know, but a joke always tells the truth. You just pick the part of the truth that hurts the most. Before I could answer, she hung up. That night, I sat in Sophie's room while she coloured, pretending not to stare at the space on her shelf where the photo of her and Daniel used to sit. I'd put it away, but she noticed. Can Daddy come back soon? She asked. Of course, I said automatically. He just needs time to think. When people think too long, they forget, she said quietly, not looking up from her crayons. Her words stayed in my chest like a stone. The next week, I started spending more time at my parents' house. My mum said it would look better, image-wise. She thought if Daniel saw me with Sophie, stable and responsible, it might make him reconsider full custody. She even suggested I record a few videos of us baking or reading together to remind him what he's giving up. So I did. I filmed everything, pancakes, park walks, bedtime stories, and posted short clips online with soft captions about staying strong for my girl. I told myself it wasn't manipulation, it was reminding him of what mattered. But I also knew I was building a story for everyone else, the woman wronged by an overreacting husband. A few days later, an email arrived from Daniel's lawyer. Additional documentation attached. When I opened the file, my stomach dropped. Screenshots, pages of them, messages from our group chat, my words. Let them guess how small he is, LOL. The laughing emojis, the follow-up comments, all there, attached as Exhibit C. My hands went cold. I called Cassidy immediately. Did you send him our chat? She hesitated. He asked for it. I couldn't lie, Thalassa. He already had screenshots. So you just handed them over? I snapped. Some friend you are. You made that joke, she said softly. We all told you it was too far. I hung up on her. I couldn't breathe for a while after that. Just sat on the couch staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how everything had slipped out of my hands. That night, I wrote Daniel an email. Long, emotional, carefully worded. I told him how lost Sophie was without him, how hard I was trying, how I didn't mean any of it the way it sounded. I said I was drunk, that I was showing off, that everyone knew I loved him. He replied the next morning. Your feelings are noted. Please direct all further communication through our attorneys. That single sentence broke something in me. I called my mum again. He's acting like I'm some criminal. He's turning everyone against me. She didn't hesitate. Then fight back. He's not the only one who can play smart. If he wants a legal war, you give him one. So I did what she said. I found a lawyer, someone who advertised as empathetic representation for women. I met with her that afternoon. She smiled kindly, took notes, asked questions that made me feel like the victim again. I told her Daniel was cold, distant, punishing me, that he was using the legal system to control me. By the end of the meeting, she was nodding. We can counter for emotional distress and request shared custody, she said. You'll need to be careful about your online posts, though. They can use them against you. Too late, I said quietly. She smiled like she didn't hear me. When I left, I felt oddly powerful, like maybe I could still turn this around if I played it right. If I made him look unreasonable, maybe he'd cave. But later that night, Daniel's father showed up at my parents' door. He looked tired, older than I remembered. He didn't yell or accuse me. He just said, he's not angry anymore. That's what's scary. I didn't understand. What does that mean? It means he's done, and when Daniel's done, there's nothing left to fix. He left before I could respond. After he was gone, my mom hugged me tightly. He's bluffing, she whispered. Men always come back when they realize what they've lost. but something in me knew he wasn't bluffing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the dining table, surrounded by the remains of what used to be our life together. The pictures, the paperwork, the empty chair. I kept telling myself I'd fix it tomorrow, that he'd remember how much he loved me, that we'd laugh about all this one day. Then, near midnight, another email arrived. The subject line read, "Disclosure, Additional Exhibits." Inside was a scanned document, an audio file transcript, my own voice from a message I'd left weeks ago. "You're being dramatic, Daniel." It was a joke. Get over it. Underneath, a note, submitted as evidence of attitude and intent. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. He wasn't trying to make me jealous. He wasn't punishing me. He was building a case. And for the first time, I realized Daniel didn't want to win me back. He wanted to erase me. When the house finally went dark, I sat in the silence, my phone still glowing beside me, and whispered to myself, "He'll come back." But even as I said it, I knew he already had, just not to me. He'd come back to himself. And that meant I had already lost. I didn't even recognize him the first time I saw him again. It had been almost 2 months since that night, and when Daniel finally walked into the mediation office, he didn't look like the man I'd humiliated at our dining table. He looked calm, solid, composed. His hair was neatly trimmed, his shirt pressed, his eyes steady. There was no anger, no warmth either, just quiet control. He nodded politely when he saw me, like I was a colleague he once worked with, not the wife he'd shared a decade of his life with. "Thalassa," he said, and my name sounded formal in his mouth. "Daniel," I managed, standing a little too fast. My voice came out softer than I wanted. The mediator asked us to sit. There were papers everywhere, thick folders with our names printed on them, each one feeling like another piece of me being boxed and labeled. I'd rehearsed what I would say, how I was sorry, how I'd been drunk, how everything had been taken out of context. I even practiced a small smile in the mirror that morning, something humble, not desperate. When I spoke, I kept my tone light. "I just want to say I never meant to hurt you, Daniel. I know things got blown out of proportion." He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "You didn't just hurt me, Thalassa. You humiliated me." The mediator cleared his throat and redirected the conversation to practical matters: property, accounts, custody arrangements. But I barely heard him. I couldn't stop staring at Daniel's hands, steady, deliberate, never fidgeting. He wasn't the same man I'd pushed around for years. When the mediator asked about child custody, Daniel spoke clearly. "Joint custody, alternating weeks. I'll maintain Sophie's current school and extracurricular schedule. The marital home will be sold and proceeds divided equally." I blinked. "You want to sell the house?" "It's the fairest option," he said. "Neither of us should stay there." The way he said neither of us made my throat tighten. I tried to smile. "That's not necessary. We can fix this, Daniel. We just need time." He didn't look at me. "This is fixing it." The mediator kept going, his voice blending into a dull hum. I tried to interrupt, to make Daniel look at me, but he only answered the lawyer's questions, never mine. Finally, I snapped. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away like none of it mattered?" He glanced at me then, his expression calm. "It mattered. That's why I'm doing this right." Something in me cracked. The anger, the panic, the disbelief, it all surged up at once. "You're punishing me. That's what this is. You want to make me look like a monster so you can play the victim." Daniel stayed still. "You made me into a joke, Thalassa. I'm just setting the record straight." The mediator quickly moved to end the session, suggesting we take a short break. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, gripping the sink until my knuckles turned white. In the mirror, my face looked unfamiliar, tired, hollow, a woman losing ground she thought she owned. When I came back, Daniel was talking to his lawyer in low tones. He didn't even glance up as I walked in. For the first time in years, I realized my voice no longer carried weight with him. When the meeting ended, we stood outside in the parking lot for a moment. He handed me a manila envelope. "Copies of the financial statements," he said. "That's all you have to say to me?" He met my eyes then, and I saw nothing. No hatred, no love, just distance. "I hope you take care of yourself," he said, and walked away. That night, I called my mom, half crying, half furious. "He's acting like I don't even exist." "Good," she said bitterly. "That means he's still hurt. Men who stop caring are the dangerous ones." But I knew she was wrong. He wasn't hurt anymore. He was done. Over the next few weeks, everything moved fast. There were more forms, signatures, deadlines. The lawyers talked more than we did. Every time I thought about calling him, I remembered how steady his voice sounded in that office and stopped myself. Still, I couldn't help trying one last time. I called him late one night, hoping the familiarity of my voice would break through that wall of silence. He didn't pick up, but I left a message anyway. "I know I messed up," I said, my voice trembling. "You're being cold, Daniel. I just want my family back. Please." The next day, my bank app showed that my access to our joint account had been revoked. I stared at the screen until it blurred. A few days later, his lawyer sent me a message confirming the account separation had been finalized. Attached was another document, Sophie's visitation schedule. Structured, organized, legal. It felt like looking at a calendar someone else had built for my life. Cassidy texted me around then, saying she'd heard about the custody agreement. "He's being ruthless," she wrote. "He's being smart," I replied before I could stop myself. Then I stared at the words, realizing how true they were. The following week, we had another mediation session. I thought maybe if I showed remorse, real tears, he might bend a little. People always did when I cried, so I played my part. I told him I missed him, that Sophie cried at night, that I'd lost weight because I couldn't eat. All of it true, but not for the reasons I claimed. I wanted him to see the pain, to feel guilty for causing it. He listened quietly, then said, "I'm sorry you're struggling. I hope you get support." That was it. No crack in his voice, no flicker of hesitation, just polite detachment. Something cold settled inside me. He wasn't punishing me anymore. He was protecting himself. And the more calm he became, the more frantic I felt. That night, I looked through old texts and emails, searching for proof that we'd been happy once. Photos from vacations, anniversary posts, silly little notes he'd left on the fridge. I wanted to find something that would remind him, something I could use to make him remember how much he used to love me. Instead, I found my own words, the group chat messages, the comments, the posts mocking him. Seeing them laid out like that, without the laughter, without the context of that night, they looked cruel. They were cruel. For the first time, I let myself admit that maybe he wasn't the villain after all, but it was too late. The day after the final mediation session, a courier knocked on my door. I signed for a thick envelope without reading the label. Inside was a notice, petition for dissolution of marriage. Filed, stamped, official. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where it all started, and read every line. Each paragraph was calm, factual, almost gentle in tone. There were no accusations, no bitterness, just boundaries, legal, neat, final. At the bottom, his signature, steady, unshaken. I traced it with my finger, remembering how he used to sign birthday cards with a little heart next to his name. Not this time, just Daniel Grant. The next morning, I checked his social media out of habit. His profile photo was new, a picture of him and Sophie at the park, both smiling. No caption, no bitterness, just peace. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I closed the app and whispered to no one, "He's really gone." For the first time, I didn't mean gone like angry or hiding. I meant gone like free. And somehow that was worse.